With the launch of the Arbortech Ball Gouge in countries other than Australia, some people are wondering what the Ball Gouge is for, whether they should get that over the TURBOplane or other carving tools. I thought the easiest way would be through a form of demonstration of the pros and cons of what each of these can do. These sort of questions were coming up through the Wood Whisperer Guild Facebook group, and I'm mostly answering questions that people haven't asked yet, so I'm being helpful. So I've got a piece of rubber wood here. I've painted one side black so we can see the marks that the two tools leave. I'm going to start with the Ball Gouge. So from this you might conclude that the TURBOplane is better, and for some things, yeah, it is. It has a wider, flatter cutting surface, so this is a much shallower groove but much wider, so if you're removing a lot of material, this is, well, much quicker. Ball Gouge, I mean, it is comparatively smaller, moves less material. This isn't really meant for straight line type stuff. It does tend to move around a little bit more. This is much better for smaller projects, particularly if you are getting curves inside and outside. So we'll cover what this is good at in a second. So if you're trying to strip paint off, definitely go for the TURBOplane. You can get it flatter and remove more material. If you're doing something like a chair, the TURBOplane is interesting because it doesn't have any cutters on the side here. So if I grabbed a piece of material, obviously you wouldn't use this thick, and ran it against it, it'll actually act as a template. It'll maybe cause some burning on the template, but it won't cut into it. So that means for a seat of a chair, if you're wanting it to be perfectly symmetrical, the template gives you that option. The Wood Whisperer Mark Spagnolo covered this in a power carving episode, so that's what I'll refer you to rather than doing a chair now. That's not to say that the TURBOplane is only good for flat type of carvings, but you are going to be limited by how far you can get in. And because it doesn't cut on the sides, you can't really sort of score a line across. You need to work within the limitations of the tool. So we'll move on to the Ball Gouge and what sort of things it can do. As you can see, I've got a bowl blank here. Let's pretend this is too big to get on my lathe. With the TURBOplane, you could get a decent surface, but you wouldn't be able to get particularly deep because of how small this is. You just couldn't physically get the grinder in. Because the Ball Gouge cuts on all edges and it sticks out from the grinder, you can get much deeper. So we'll have a bit of a shot in this. I think this is Elder. Now, by no means is this a masterpiece. I haven't used the Ball Gouge all that often for various reasons. I just haven't had a chance to. So I'm still learning all the sweet spots of how it cuts, how it should feel when it's cutting, the most efficient angles and all of that. TURBOplane, I feel, has a lower learning curve to get to that sort of sweet spot where you can really hog out material. And one thing that you can see is the TURBOplane doesn't even fit into that hole. So for smaller stuff, the Ball Gouge is really quite good. And you might argue, well, there's the TURBOplane Mini, which is much smaller. I think it's about that size. And it is on a shank, an extended shank, so you can get in. And that's true. But what you can't do with the Mini Turbo is this undercut that I've got going on here. So if that's something that you're after, the Ball Gouge will certainly do that. Now, obviously these work on exterior things, but that's one of the bigger differences between the two, is that if you're doing a lot of interior, deepish stuff, particularly with undercuts, the Ball Gouge will win out. If you've used neither of these before, they are both quite fun. I prefer the TURBOplane for the stuff that I've done so far. I just find it more fun. Not to say that the Ball Gouge isn't, but I can wrap my head around this a bit easier. I would recommend trying it outside, as it makes a hell of a mess. Something like a Turner's mask or face shield is highly recommended. This is the Honeywell or Uvex or Spirion Bionic shield. I'll have links to that below on Amazon. If you're in Australia, RSEA have it. I'll have a link to that too. And for work holding, something like the Super Jaws, well, this is actually a knockoff of Triton's Super Jaws. Sydney Tools' home brand. You can also get it through Rockwell and Portamate. Again, I'll have links to that in the description below. Highly recommend working with closed shoes rather than like thongs or flip-flops, because, I mean, it's safer for a start, but you get a lot of shavings from this rather than sawdust, and getting between your toes, it really is not pleasant. So as a final bit of show and tell, this was the first thing I did with the Ball Gouge. This is in, it's either Jarrah or Red Gum, which is a very hard wood. I couldn't have got this detail with the TURBOplane, particularly the straight undercut for the nose. And again, first thing, so give me a bit of a break on that. And with the TURBOplane, this is something I've done recently, which is a wave pattern, which once it's sanded, we'll get a white coat, and the shadows should make the waves more pronounced. I could have done this with the Ball Gouge, but the wider diameter of the TURBOplane let me get a smoother curve all the way along. Thanks for watching.